Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Alchemist The Oracle, a space where we engage in spiritualized conversations that deepen understanding, inspire transformation, and hopefully spark meaningful dialogue about life's most profound truths. I am Nicole of The Oracle, and as always, I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Warrioress, Ardeshir, RN, the Alchemist.
What's shaking, y'all?
Welcome to the Alchemist and Oracle, and today we're getting into conversation about what we fucked around and found out in love, and here's what we found out. So we're going there. So it's officially February, the month of love, and we thought we would lean in very boldly. I approach things from a very irreverent standpoint. I literally have a podcast that's called Fuck Your High Vibes for those that. So I am going to allow my co-host to lean in and share what she found out when she fucked around in love. She doesn't like that word so much.
True, but I have my soul who had pulled out, with a little bit of assistance, the true nature of what I found out about love in a poem. And I think that when we look at love in its origin, as people's like, what is love? And I think we talked about it last season. And mostly deep down within our soul selves, we kind of know what it is, but also nobody is really sits down with you about this. And I think because our soul is so in tune to the higher power, we know what it is for us, and it has to be defined for us and by no one else. And what we find out, is what's true for us and what's not, and what we learned of how we were and how we aren't to be in it to have a smooth. And most people don't have the conversations, and we try to assume what that is, even for someone else, and it's hard to do that without having that conversation. So I'm going to share this here message me to you about and then elaborate on a little bit more about fuck around and find out a love lesson. So here we go. I didn't fuck around with love. I fucked around with myself. I called endurance devotion. I called silent strength. I called staying loyalty when really it was fear wearing a crown. I thought let meant to prove it. Bleed a little, bend a little, disappear quietly so someone else could stay comfortable. That was my belief, and belief shapes behavior. So I ignored the tightening in my chest, the pause before my yes, the voice that whispered, this isn't it, before I ever had to scream. I learned how to ignore red flags instead of respond to them. I learned how to overgive and call it generosity. I learned how to abandon myself and called it love. And love let me. Not because it was cruel, but because love is blatantly honest. That was the part that no one tells you. Love doesn't chase you down and force you to choose yourself. Love waits, love watches, love reveals. And eventually you find out. You find out when resentment moves in quietly, when exhaustion becomes your baseline, when you can't hear your own intuition anymore because you've talked over it for so long. Love didn't break me. It showed me where I had already been breaking myself in the name of connection. That was the find out. And here's the lesson love carved into me without asking my permission. Love doesn't require self-betrayal. Chemistry is not compatibility. Intensity is not intimacy. And being chosen does not mean being safe. Boundaries are not walls. They are the shape of my self-respect. And they are the terms under which my spirit agrees to stay. I learned that if I have to shrink to be loved, that's not love, that's negotiation. I learned that staying too long teaches a lesson that leaving never could. And I learned as a warrioress, not by hardening my heart, but by sharpening my discernment. Now I move slower. I listen the first time when something feels off. I don't bother my knees for proximity anymore. I choose peace over potential, alignment over attachment, and truth over timing. Love does not cost me my relationship with myself anymore. So when I say fuck around and find out in love, what it really means, love has trained me well. It stripped me of my illusions, burned away my fantasy, and it returned me to myself rather, awake, aware, and unwilling to forget. Because the lesson was never about them. It was about remembering who the fuck I am before I reach out for love again. If love requires you to abandon yourself, you didn't find love, you found the lesson. Peace.
Well, I'm going to leave right now. Thank you all for watching. We appreciate you so very much. Wow. Okay. I just have to say that was, yeah. Just have to sit with that. It's just like, how do you like there's so much there. It's so layered and I should lean into the microphone and talk. Wow. Okay. I'm gonna be quiet. Continue on.
No, you don't. It was meant for pause.
It was meant for applause.
It was meant for pause.
I'm going to.
It was meant for reflection. Um, so yeah, yeah. I when I go back and I look at the groundwork that initiated most things and in spirit, it couldn't have been any more truth about what we think until we learn more because it's hard to even be taught. But even though for me and for I just have to go there for parents involved in sitting down and understanding that learning or that recognition of what it taught and as much and I love my mother as much as she would have portrayed that it was a hard time where even the silent generation which came before the generation that was like and some people said that they weren't like that in the generation where they were told to what was it be seen and not heard type of thing where nobody expressed or wanted to talk about those things that were so pleasurable or so supposed to be good was so not so good or I use the word taboo because that's how it came off. and
Mm.
and to have to go through the experiences to actually F around and find out and love, mostly for yourself. Um,
Mm.
so in mind and being the person of great loyalty, but for me, that loyalty has to be earned. It just can't be given so freely. Um, and you don't have to prove it. Love just is. And you can know it. Getting to know each other, getting to find out, getting to say I love you. And so one of my things is that if I tell you I love you, I can tell you why. But I love people just because they exist in the world. But when you get to a more closer relationship, more intimate, then it becomes a little bit deeper. It comes a little bit deeper. You don't understand the depth of that, and even getting to a point where you're exposing your bodies to one another is even another deeper sensual. And we were talking about, they be talking about the sacred part of that, so, and sometimes we lose ourselves in that of another, but we first have to love ourselves so deeply. And then also, a love told me is how I was allowing others to treat myself, and how was I really treating mine. Yeah, I was taking care of myself, clothes, this and that. And I ain't the biggest shopper in the world, because once I find something, I like it. So I'm very particular, because I can only wear that like cotton. I have on silk now. It's just learning those things about that. But when it comes to the nature and the origin of how love is so deep and so in depth, to have a relationship with another person as if of how your mama, or how your, that kind of love is so unconditional. But we have conditions more so, what I found around loving someone else and what we expect. Because if we haven't learned to love ourselves and we haven't found out, for me, that then it's hard for you to receive it at the depth in which we all deserve to receive that, if we choose to be with another in that depth of love, and to be able to speak um unapologetically what it is that you desire, or what it is that you would do to make things so smoothly. Because what I have shared is that when we have these unfounded expectations, then we get disappointed instead of being in flow and honoring and speaking and having the true conversations and honoring our past, or any of the hurts or any of the pains and any of that, and grow forward so that it doesn't continue as you go forward in your next relationship, or even as you grow in your current relationships, for example. And really finding out and sitting down with yourself. And as my co-host has said, is about sitting in the compassion. Well, hell, I was in the compassion tribe, then the love tribe. So it's all about,
Wow.
sitting with that. Yeah. So, you can't make this stuff up. And this, that was energetically put together in our warrior training ship. And at that time, I had just been given a book by a provider of mine that was talking about compassion, and how you must have it for yourself in order for somebody to honor that as well. Um, and so the depth of ignoring the signs that you get kind of right away, and you have to be okay. Because if you have the depth of finding out how to love yourself and honoring that, then you won't choose to settle. And not everybody is for us, and we have to understand that. Some of us are meant to be friends, or that some of us are not meant to go into the depth of certain relationships, for which I have learned, and that's okay. um, but I've learned that for all that I have learned a lot. I have loved, and I've had the fun, and the people who I met were, or have been, um great teachers, and just the joy and the fun around the experiences, and even the travel and the learnings have been um, such a great awareness and awakening. And we all are teachers in our own right, and for the reasons why we're here, and we learn that and we find out, and we have to, if we're not in that, leave them in such a way, because if you love somebody and you love them for a reason, where does the hate, where does all this come from, especially when you've been so entwined physically with one another, and depending on how you come together. So love, when even in the Corinthian, love is 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 doesn't have to be proved, and love is 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 something that should naturally flow in, and then the connection, then the attraction, and then the whole thing is the work that you do to become whole. So when you move forward, as I said, is to know who the freak you are, who the fuck you are, before you step into love again, and not continue to carry hurt, pains, and this, and look at it as a learning lesson, which was very, very hard to think, because that's not what people share, you know, about learning, and that sometimes that reason for a season, that was hard to do, because some people are here for a season and some are here for a lifetime, and you have to be okay with the reasons in the season. So
Mm-hmm.
I can come back, but I'll stop there for now. Um, um, mm. Love is blatantly honest. Yeah. So to make sure that I definitely articulate the lessons. And I think that some of us, like you have said, how we spoken, don't understand that the compassion, that sometimes we F up, sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. Because for real, nobody really knows how to tell us. We try to learn from our people, and sometimes our people don't even know how to love us, the ones that birthed us, because they didn't know what they didn't know. So long as we have breath and body, we have to choose to seek it for ourselves, and we can find joy in doing that. We can even find joy in the lessons, which you said not most people do it because it seems like it's a failure.
Yep.
And and honesty and reality is just a lesson, and to correct, and to honor, and to really honor yourself. And I have to go back that you have to love you first. Can't nobody love you better than you. Can't nobody help you, treat you, everybody learn to love you how you need to be loved but you. But you have to learn that for yourself and about yourself, because love is grand. It's just like what is it? Is it and not that bad, but I know it was the First Corinthians, and I forgot to do it. I used to be able to recite it. Sometimes I end up reciting, remembering other things and it's on my wall, I believe. Um, so yeah, so mm, I'm good.
Are you sure? There seems to
Yeah,
be something lingering.
yeah. The depth of the depth of connection is another one. And I think as we go and talking about transforming and alchemizing is to let go of the perceptions of what you think it is and just go deep down within, because you definitely have to connect with the love that you are in order to understand that companionship or having that is just a added precept to the love that you already are, and to attract that love to you. Um, Once you have let all the other BS go, um, of what you thought it'd be like, your expectations of it, because expectations really, really cause disappointment. And disappointment
It's the
brings
opposite of
about
love.
something. Um,
I said that's literally the opposite of love. Love holds
yeah,
no conditions, and expectations are 100% conditional.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I said it better myself. Definitely. Um, so we just blend, and not everybody is for us. So when something doesn't feel right, and I think, even Major Iyanla Van Zandt brings up and has spoken about in such a way that she does about the red flags. And that's even a friendship. It doesn't always have to be that, but we look at that and we ignore things because we still have other people who are still unhealed in the presence of love. And that's the work that we've done. That's the work that continues to have to be done, especially when you come together as one. And I've been catching a couple of movies and a couple of things that, have brought certain things, like this to the forefront when it comes, to love, when it comes to relationships, and to do the work. And when it was talking about slowing down, we do need to slow down, give your chance, and find out who it is that you're choosing to meet or to date or that, and ask the verbal questions that seem to be taboo, that need to be asked. And you can know whether you're fit or you're not a fit. Or then there's a other attraction. But I think we're moving really, really, really fast. Hey, judging whatever, but to honor what feels uncomfortable, and to honor those things, and know that maybe it's okay to move on next. These things that um was really hard for me, because getting in a relationship with somebody, for someone like me, is deep. It's very deep. Um, and I think it is for most people, because of what we desire, because of the human connection, because of that attraction factor. So yeah, um, and it's okay. They are what they are, and we all feel them. Even, and I use driving as that, but even in that, the love for that, just that, there's red flags where, intuition speaks first. And I spoke about, ignoring it for so long. There's sometimes I didn't, in my career, um, but when you do that, you're not honoring yourself, and the love that you are. So know who you are. Know who you are. Know who you are. Once you know who you are, when you go into love, you're already there to express it. And there's no need to settle. There's no need to small. There's no need to make anyone comfortable in your true essence. Your true essence just is. And love is precious. Loving is precious. And from the saying that we can learn from the animals that we that we house, that we parent, you know? Yeah. And sometimes we have to re-parent ourselves in love. Yeah. I'm good.
What does I'm good
Oh,
mean? What do you mean? Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm gonna
yeah.
do my best to make what I so what I do in preparing for these episodes is I sit down and kind of do like a stream of consciousness for those that are listening or watching, just to kind of provide context while sometimes it may not seem like it flows in a way that we would consciously put things together. So I just wanted to say that outright. One of
Okay.
the things that I've been trying to do this year is get back into using the library that I have within my library, right? And also the library that I have within my mind.
Yes.
And so I approach this from, I always say that the most loving thing you can do is to be honest, right?
Yes.
So I really have changed how I approach things like, oh, I'm going to be very vulnerable. This is not me being vulnerable. This is me being really honest. And I think I am to the point where I can look at the things that I have experienced in my life that have been very challenging to go through. And it's not me being vulnerable because I don't feel like it's sensitive for me to share. So I'm sharing this from the standpoint of being honest because honesty is what is the most loving thing to do, right? And so, with that, the most loving thing to do with yourself is to be honest about how you fucked around and found out. Like, what did you find out? One of the things that I did when I sat down and really kind of sat with that topic of like, what is it that I found out? And I'm going to talk about one specific thing here. And there's like, this could be the entire Alchemist and Oracle channel topics where we just like go through like all the different life experiences that we had growing up as children and breaking down how that has linked to all the experiences throughout each of our lives. And so one of the things that kind of stood out, like I was drawn to this book, The Places That Scare You by Pima Children. And it's a really good read because it talks about it says on here it's a guide to fearlessness in difficult times, right? Times are always difficult because that's just part of the human experience here on earth. And one of the things that she says here, and I wrote it down, and it kind of leans into what you already said as I'm looking at it. And she says in the book, and I don't remember what page it is, she says in the book, as a species, we should never underestimate our low tolerance for discomfort. And so I think a lot of people fight this like discomfort and like, you know, I fucked around and found out in love, and like these are the things that I find out. And there's the reminder is that we have a low tolerance for discomfort. And we should never underestimate that as being humans. And from that thought, right, is she also talks about self-improvement and how a lot of people are approaching like what they found out in love. Like how can I prove myself in terms of like what I found out in love? The problem with that, the challenge with that I've experienced with myself, I'm sure the Warriors can agree to this. I'm sure she's worked with people that have demonstrated that. I 100% have done that, like with my clients for sure, is that self-improvement can have very temporary results. It can be very temporary. Here's why. what I've come to realize in terms of what is the lasting transformation that occurs is when we honor ourselves as a source of wisdom and compassion. So it's honoring. The most loving thing you can do is to be honest. I think honoring ourselves is to be honest about that low tolerance of discomfort that we experience, those experiences that we had that made us uncomfortable. As simple as that. And from that, it's about how can you, like, being able to stay present with ourselves. That honesty piece, being the most loving thing to do is to be honest. And she also wrote in the book, and I wrote this down, I'm trying to decipher it. You won't be free of self-destructive patterns unless you develop compassionate understanding of what they are. So when we look at compassion here, compassion can be defined as a desire to alleviate suffering. So going back to her quote, and then I'll share my own personal experience of how I recognize one of my patterns through this process of really approaching what I found out, what I effed around and found out in love was this patterning, because I'm always looking for pattern recognition because it helps you to get really clear around the impact of experiences and thus the choices that we're making, so you can start to manage what you see that is playing out. How can you start to manage that? And the transformational piece here, lasting transformation, is really about being in that discomfort. And the key to lasting transformation is being in your body. And so many people escape that discomfort. Oh, I don't want to talk about that relationship. I felt it in my body, yada, yada, yada. I know this because this literally is the work that I do. It's the work that I do. It's like you have to get in the body. And the reason that I do that work is because I did my own loving, honest, compassionate, approaching it very compassionately. So, and taking ownership, having self-awareness, and thus self-acceptance of myself, because love has no conditions. And so that unconditionalness of love requires that the key is being in your body and understanding that we, being in that human body, have a level of low tolerance or discomfort. The being in your body part helps you to see the pattern. It helps you to be honest about that discomfort. And it provides a sense of pattern recognition around this is how this is showing up. So I'll tell you my story of how I make the connection with something that goes back to my father. One of the things that I realized, the lessons in love that I found, started with my partner. And I had this revelation where he literally said, and it was very like, oh my God, really? I can't believe you said that. But it was true. He told me, this was years ago, like in my early 20s. I'm in my 40s now, just to give context. He literally told me, I said something to him. I don't even remember what I said. And he said, I am not your father. The level of discomfort in hearing him say that in my body, I wanted to punch him. I was getting ready to break up with his ass. I was like, you little dirty, like, just, and then I realized that he said it from a place of love. He was being honest from a place of love, because he didn't run away from that. He said, he let me vent, and he was like, I'm more than who he has been to you. And I'm trying to show you that I'm not him. But the thing about that is I had to sit with my capacity in receiving that. And so what I started to do is to really look at, like, damn, how is this show? Like, why would he say that? And he feels that this is true. And I started asking him, like, why? And he kind of gave me his perspective and his take. And it started me down this journey, kind of going back of how I was showing up and loving this man that goes all the way back to my dad. The path towards healing was kind of reverse engineering back to what is that pain point that I was feeling in my body so viscerally so that I literally wanted to punch this man. And that was not even like the subconscious response was like, I want to fight you for that statement. Because my body was carrying that as to be true. Like, yeah, girl, you doing that. And this is why it's showing up this way. So the path to healing was being really compassionate in seeing this pattern playing out, seeing the impact that I was having with my partner. I was literally bleeding out on him from my unhealed pain. And the path to healing was being honest about the why. So unpacking it back, I realized that what I found out in loving this man and also attempting to seek the love and the validation and what love showed up in my relationship with my father was one of abandonment. I would say like that would be the generalized word that I would use to identify the overall experience with my father is one of abandonment. How that shows up is so layered. It showed up in my sense of worthiness. My worth was tied to that experience because my father taught me that love is conditional. Every experience that I had with my father was one of condition. Always one of condition. He would spend time with me, but what I found out is I was being used as a cover for him to go see his girlfriends. So he would take me, my mom would dress me up and like I'd be so excited. Oh, I get to spend time with my dad. And then he would take me somewhere or he would drop me off at a family friend's house while he would go see his girlfriends. So not enough was kind of came into that tying to that worthiness. So I had these abandonment issues. I had worthiness that was tied from that sense of disconnection. I also felt like, well, maybe I'm too much. Maybe I'm being too much. Maybe if I'm quiet, maybe then he'll like see me. And then, you know, the path to healing in terms of that relationship, as well, what I found out in love was I started to look at why is my father parenting me in this way? Where did he learn this from? Because my mom is so opposite from him. My mom is loving and love is not conditional by any means. And like she's like the full on expressed presence of what unconditional love looks like. And so because I had this stark difference, it was just like, why, like, what is it? Why is she like this? Why does she have the capacity to be like this versus my father? And then I read down the path towards healing led me down, like looking at him not as my father, but as the little boy that was attempting to parent as my father. So I started to look at him from a much more compassionate lens because I recognized that he was suffering. Because there would be these moments like he came back into my life and, you know, he would say all these things and I felt like he felt like it was true, you know, like, I'm so sorry that I ever said that or that I made you feel this way. And then now I realize he met his capacities. Like he felt this way, but he didn't know what to do about it. He didn't know what to do about it. That was all that he knew. And so what I started to realize is, and it goes back to what you were saying, is capacity. People's capacity to parent. It links back to how they were parented. And so when I look back at how his father showed up, it was one of like neglect and abandonment and abuse and like too much, not enough, worthiness. So he was parenting in the same way with me that he was parented in. But what I realized is that he was trying to be just a little bit better, but it was still showing up because that was the only frame of reference that he had. That was the capacity that he had in terms of love. And I don't think he had that representation in his family of what unconditional love looked like, because his mother was involved in the situation and she was having to deal with this relationship with a man that was very, very, very verbally and physically abusive. And she's got children that she has to take care of that have needs and things like that. And so the path to healing here and what I'm sharing is what I realized in my approaching love with my partner and him saying, like, I'm not your father. I had to be really honest about how I was showing up as this wounded little girl that was looking at men from the standpoint of me trying to attempt to not expect much from him as my partner. And he was like, you deserve more than that. Like, I'm not your father, you deserve so much more than that. And I pushed him away, and so that was where my capacity was. Yeah, and so I think the point I'm trying to make is it's always worth being so compassionate with yourself, because when we go back to the word, it's like you have this desire to alleviate the suffering. So you identify what's the level of discomfort that you have in the love and these experiences, the relationships that you've had with other people. What has been uncomfortable in those relationships? How can you be compassionate about how that has shown up? Because it's all about having this desire to alleviate that, so you stop repeating the pattern. You break that cycle. You break that cycle of holding conditions over love. Because the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to be honest. To be honest, recognize the patterns. And it goes back to our previous episodes, which she alluded to. It's so important to have a level of self-awareness so you can be that authentic expression of who you are, which is always rooted in unconditional love. And it's remembering that. And we always have the capacity to look at the lessons. And it goes back to one episode where we're kind of talking about the laws of being human. And it was like the lesson. And literally I broke down the word lesson is, what do you need to be less on? So look at how you are showing up and what's being activated in you on a body level, a physical level. Because that's the key to lasting transformation, is to get with the body, sit in the body, feel into the body. How does it show up? Because there's a memory that has been coded in our nervous system. That is thus attached to the fascia, that then goes into our organs, our skeletal system, our circulatory system. And that's what becomes part of our cells are produced from that. So that's why you can literally feel so like toxic in love, or you feel like these toxic relationships, we can normalize them because that's what we know. But also our body can signal that there's a misalignment, because we do have the capacity to see what we fucked around and found out. And one of the things that I found out is that I was repeating a pattern of how my father showed me and demonstrated to me how to relate in relationship with my partner at that
Mm.
specific time. And so I approached it from a compassionate standpoint with myself. And I also extended that to him. And it provided such a level of comfort in realizing he didn't have the capacity. He didn't know how to be more than what he gave me. And I get to choose to have more of what I see feels comfortable in my body. I get to choose, oh, okay, well, I recognize this pattern in my father. I don't like how that made me feel. And I can choose something differently. But the key is you have to be honest about like these lessons in love. And I've learned so much that, you know, like our parents really do influence through this modeling how they respond, and thus they hold on to us.
Yes.
And we take that as, oh, that's what love means. But it's goes back to what you're saying, like the reparenting. Our responsibility as adults is to reparent ourselves. Even though my mom was this really beautiful demonstration of unconditional love, there's some things that I identified that I need to reparent around, you know, her capacity in being a parent. She was overwhelmed, you know, being the sole provider too. So, you know, I have some money stories and beliefs that came from my mom.
Yes.
But see, this
Yeah.
is all like why it's so important to like always find out, always be in the space to joyously as best as you can. I think more compassionately find out what you can be less on.
That's
I hope
interesting.
I hope that articulated. Um
Very well.
okay, thank you.
That was articulated very
Kind of
well.
blacked out there for a minute.
It actually brought up some things that I guess I meant to share in the beginning was the self-reflection questions that you have to ask yourself, even in the relationships and even thereafter, it's like what did I think love was, at that time and what it meant and the self-correction. So you mentioned things. So I mentioned parents because when I go back and I look at a situation with my father and fathers, we have a lot of the fathers and the parents. And it was something I was going to speak about in love. And we do get certain things like scarcity, all these different things because of an era or of time. And one of the people with whom and people, I don't understand why people don't think, there's like got, relationships, all relationships, marriages, friendships, even parenting and petting you, they're all relationships. So one of my relationships, you brought up something when you were talking about less and less of, is that someone mentions like, you got too many rules. And I'm like, I don't know, and that hit hard. That hit real hard. I'm like, really?
Ooh.
Like,
The stung. The stung.
yeah, it's dumb.
Yeah.
It's dumb. It's
It's
dumb.
usually like that. It usually does show up where it stings, or like if you find yourself feeling like instantly defensive,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
something needs to be unpacked.
Right. Exactly. And it just was food for thought. And it's like, well, damn, and and we do the worst thing that I think that we realize when it looks at distraction and me being an alchemist dealing with the mind, looking at the ego, is we have a tough time sitting with the questions. And I had talked to you about the questions and our ego. I mean, we know what we know and we don't honor what we know. And we have to take the time to sit with self, and sitting with self is the important thing. That's why people say I don't journal. Well,
Find something
well,
else.
yeah,
Literally find something else. That's
yeah,
not the only way to sit with yourself.
yeah. I mean, getting it out on paper or even desires, things and that they're really important because coming from an era where writing was the thing to do. And I look at some things that were on paper that we didn't realize were coming to fruition. And as a child, you put things and you believe what you believe without the interference of what's there, or the possibilities, and then you don't tell anybody, so nobody can really discourage you, like the manifestation and the love of being free. Biking was freedom, and love in different aspects of relationships. When we talk about parents, and I think I didn't finish my statement earlier with my mom, who thought she had shared about love and this and that. The one thing that she said, but I know some people are gonna go, well, oh shit, if I say this statement on this here podcast on YouTube, she'll say it. But when we slowing down, it's definitely getting to know somebody. And something that one of my cousins has said to me about their person was the patience and the time. And you'll find if somebody loves them, they patient away. Because what I said, getting with bodies on bodies, that's a real serious, intimate thing. And so my mother, didn't really, it was this thing where you couldn't talk about, the intimacy or whatever, the one thing she said is you should wait till a year, before you have, intimate relations like that. But like I've said before, being romantic is that there is, what is it that I learned about in the God memorandum, that there's like 500 something touch sensitive things on the body that we have yet to explore, in that essence, and that nobody is able to feel, to sit down. Now there's other parents that did, but there's others that didn't. And then there's so religious that don't have you really sharing, but yeah, let's procreate, but let's not talk about how to get there, or what it's like, or the attraction you'll have at teens, this and that, and how to navigate that. And when you talk about father for a woman, and my mother had that because her dad wasn't around, and how you be treated. And so I didn't get that either. And no, he judged my dad. He already knows what he knows, or the capacity to know how to raise a daughter, you know, or what to do.
That's a very valid point. How do you learn how to
I've had these
raise?
conversations with my mother
Like,
about
I think
that.
that's a really interesting conversation to have. Is like, how do you raise an individual? Because I think it's hard to raise children, period, because they're not, this idea that they're exactly like you is not true. There may be some similarities, and then you have the mix of the mother and the father. So it's just like, because I think about like my mom and me, I'm so different than my mom.
Yeah.
I just look at the world differently. I literally process information so much different than her. It's like, how do you hold the capacity, especially during certain times of like lifing,
Yes. That part. Yeah.
to feel like it's safe to allow my child to explore who they are, versus where the world is saying like, it just, for you like, I feel like most parents are just trying to keep their children safe.
That's that part. That was true. That was very
So I was
much
like,
true.
how do you learn? Like, how do you figure it out? Like, they're just figuring it out along the way. And I think people need to be
Yeah.
mindful of that. That's my point I'm trying to make. People need to be mindful that their parents are figuring it out along the way,
Yeah. I
while
mean,
life was happening in a way that you had no idea what was going on.
yeah, and that's the transmission, or the part in the mind that you alchemize, that you make the shift in honoring that they did the best they could, this and that. And like I told somebody, now that you're adult breathing, you get the choice to choose to change and to do the parenting of yourself. And there's so much information in how to do that, is to undo the suffering around it, because it is. We just don't understand it is, and we look at that word as if it's some other kind of depth of word, when
But suffering.
when yeah,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the mind. Since I like to do with the mind, of course, the mind body connection, but I understood and understand what that is, just what happened in talking about ignoring intuition. And I gave a path that I wasn't doing that anymore. And when you look at into that, is that they didn't know. there's other parents now for people that I say this is receive what and take what you want, that some parents didn't know how to sit and talk about what it would mean to be in a relationship with another human being other than what they were offering us. Except for some people say, well, don't have sex before you get married. Well, that's not the case for most, and it just depends. It's something that was very public with Megan. I don't think they're together anymore, but what they did in interim and what you can create on your own, you have to get into the mind and create, and not understand that society says you have to do it this way. What you do in your own private area is your business. It's your business. Nobody know about your business like that.
Such an important point. And stop feeling like I feel a lot of people feel compelled to share their business, just culturally speaking, especially with like social media. I think social media, it compels people to share their business.
Yeah, there's a difference here, and I think even Ia, Vincent Iyanla, had mentioned something about minding your business and sharing. There's certain, just like being here with y'all. I don't know who it's for. We ain't for everybody, but to just put the blatant truth out there that nobody actually wants to talk about, to help you elevate, to help you change, to help you have or tap into joy, the happiness, and find out what that is for you. To get into flow. And why does everything have to be in chaos? Why is it that we don't think that we can have that? We're going to have the challenges. We're going to have that. We have to find out, that everybody ain't for us, and that's okay. And to understand and find the love, find the joy, find the thing that sets you on fire. For most people, race car driving wouldn't be the thing. That's my thing. Or go-kart riding. I'm joy, baby, because I'm gonna have it in the midst of the chaos, what I've been through, to start living life instead of letting life live you. I can't let life live me. And try to find that in this world, but there's still good things going on, even in the midst of chaos. Like I was saying when I had posted by the lake. Love on you first and know how you want to be loved, because you have to love on you first.
Mm-hmm. And also, it's so important now these days. I find myself saying this more and more as a reminder to people. Create the good that you feel is lacking in your world.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Create the good. Stop. I mean, because the world is going to world. We need people to create the good. We need people to recognize the patterns of like, okay, there's a lot of chaos here. There needs more balance of the good. People are so focused on the bad that they have lost their potential to create the good. You see it, you feel it. What would make it, like finding the joy, create the joy. That's our responsibility. That's being tapped into your beingness. The humanness is uncomfortable. It literally is. We have a low tolerance for discomfort in the flesh, in our human expression. And that's why it's so important to sit with yourself, with your higher self, so you bring balance to it. The chaos and the fuckery, sorry for those, is the humans humaning. But we also are recognizing through our beingness, there's a need for balance. We have to create it because the chaos is created, which means we also have the potential to create something different than that. That's our responsibility. And it comes with connecting with our beingness, being centered in love, unpacking the lessons and the love and maybe how the chaos showed up in how you may have showed up in your relationship. I was chaotic. I was problematic. I'm able to call that out. And
Yeah.
now I choose to create a new experience with the person that I'm with now. That's the only reason we're still together. The
Yeah.
only reason we're still together is because we both recognize the power of being honest in love,
That part.
and then
Yeah.
coming together to create a more aligned and joyful experience. You don't have to live a relationship in chaos. You get to choose differently. And one thing I would tell you, highlighting what you said earlier, we keep our relationship to ourselves. People, yes, people have opinions, 100%, but they're not the ones that live with the consequences of the choices that they are telling us to do. And so therefore we're like, okay. Mm-hmm. And we go and choose what makes sense for us.
Word. Word. Word.
Thanks for taking this ride with me.
Hey, glad it was fun. You know, I love
Oh,
roller
you
coasters.
have fun? Okay. All right. So we're going to wrap up this episode here. We want to thank you all for listening or for watching, for those on the YouTube channel here. We hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you for being in conversation with me, Warrioress Ardeshir. I appreciate
you.
Be well. And thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.
See you later, y'all. Peace.